MIQ podcast on digital transformation, powered by Marlabs.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on this webcast about breach and attack simulation, or BAS for short. We'll be taking this opportunity to talk about the current state of cybersecurity and the role that BAS is playing in keeping us protected. I'm Raphael Hildesheim, VP of Sales at Marlabs, and I'm joined today by Jonathan Brothers, Regional CTO from Cymulate, as well as Mike Denapoli, Senior Security Solution Architect, also from Cymulate. Welcome both.
Thank you for having us.
So, Jonathan, let me start with you first. From a cybersecurity standpoint, we are clearly living in extraordinary times. 2020 has evolved into a very challenging year, not just from a public health and economic perspective, but also from how companies do business, interact within and outside of their organizations, and adding to an already evolving security dynamics. What trends are you seeing out there right now, especially given all this pandemic and everything that's going on in 2020? What are the trends that you're seeing out there, Jonathan?
Well, that's a great question. And, as you know, with COVID-19 crisis, it's boosted a number of remote users. Of course, then as a reflection from that, you've got a number of, a lot of new openings for hackers to come in. And also the leading to huge increase in phishing, it's increased malicious websites and malware attacks, targeting specific users. And then with that said, as we've kind of seen a much bigger, higher rate in breaches this year. There are a lot of breach remediation costs and reputation hits as well. Regulators have been demonstrating that they're ready to increase pressure. And with that said, how that correlates is everyone's familiar with the Uber breach in 2014, 2016, and the $148 million fine that went along with that. The largest multi-state penalty ever levied by state authorities for a data breach. And of course, there are GDP fines in Europe that go along with that. And some of the details around that specific breach are, over 600,000 drivers that were affected. So driver's license information, addresses, phone numbers, and affected over 57 million Uber drivers around the world. There are a lot of edge cases that an attacker could leverage to infiltrate the environment, as well as ongoing business changes are added to new attack services to create a long-term gap and pose significant risk that exceed the preventative and detection capabilities of most security teams. Also, the solution that lies in instituting measurable processes, a different approach to security and detection response is needed that is based on analytics and, of course, automation. Encryption is still key, but usability, scalability, and automation must evolve.
That's very interesting, Jonathan. Also, we're seeing lots of trends where companies this year have been trying to go remote with their workforce, and that started creating some additional gaps and strain into their security profile. So I'd like to turn to you a little bit here, Michael. As a security architect, given all these dynamics, given what we've been hearing here from Jonathan about how the industry is evolving, how does something like BAS, breach and attack simulation, provide a solution in this world that we are in right now?
Definitely, and thanks, Raphael, for having us here. Breach and attack simulation really does continuous testing of a security environment, and we're going to use the same methods, the same techniques that attackers use to see if the controls that are in place are able to deflect or withstand those particular attacks. It really represents a shift from prevention from and response, where we're going to be able to really get ahead of the game, so to speak, and know that when the real attack hits, our systems are going to be able to withstand it and to make sure it doesn't get in. Conducting these kinds of simulations faster and faster, in other words, on a regular basis, as opposed to a one-time or once a year or twice a year type basis, means that you can make small adjustments to security controls to make them more and more effective over time, to make point changes to security posture to handle new attacks, to identify unique attack paths that exist within your specific environment that may not apply to other environments. If you're in healthcare, you have different attack points than a manufacturing business would. And so having a tool set that can conform to the environment.
But Mike, I appreciate that, but I have a question, right?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, many organizations right now already do penetration testing. They already do vulnerability scanning. And it seems like you're asking a little bit more of the same here. Help me understand the difference.
Absolutely. And there is a big difference in that when we talk about pen testing, we talk about a once or possibly twice a year event. It's point in time. The security landscape, on the other hand, changes on a daily, sometimes unfortunately even hourly basis. And so information gets out of date very quickly. Also, a pen tester is not going to try hundreds or thousands of techniques to breach a firewall, just as one example. Whatever allows them to get in, that's what they're going to go with. They're going to move to the next step in their testing. Whereas a BAS tool is going to try the wide variety, the wide scope of different methods. When we talk about vulnerability scanning, that's a different issue altogether. Vulnerability scanning is critical. It provides absolutely necessary content that tells you where things need to be addressed, but it doesn't give you the context you need to prioritize. So there are 500 things that need to be corrected, 500 patches that need to be made, but only these two can be effectively attacked from the outside world. And so those need a much higher priority than the other 498. Breach and attack simulation addresses both of those issues. It's something that's going to happen continuously so that it's not out of date and it is taking into account new forms of attacks and techniques. And it's going to look at the entire security kill chain. And so you will know which vulnerabilities are exploitable and which ones can be relegated to the next sprint or the next patching run as opposed to being addressed immediately because they are an attack point for your organization. So to sum it up, breach and attack simulation provides an important addition to your defensive arsenal. As a security leader, you're going to need to understand its strengths, its limitations, and how those two things change over time.
Very interesting. Thank you, Mike. And thank you also, Jonathan, for joining us in this podcast that we have. We'll be having more podcasts coming up in our cybersecurity series, so please all stay tuned. Should you have any topics that you would like us to feature, please don't hesitate to email us or let us know. You can email us at info@marlabs.com. Again, that's info@marlabs.com. We will be happy to incorporate your feedback and suggestions. Thank you all again, and have a great day.
MIQ Podcast on Digital Transformation, powered by Marlabs.